Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Purudikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purudikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriit. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the transcendental the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Transcendental translator. Nashta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of July 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 25, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjan. Text number 12. Nasadu mene tasava bhutale yavati puraha Kaman kama yamano sao tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano sao tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano sao tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano sao tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano so tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano so tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano so tasya tasyopapattihe nasadumene tasarva bhutale yavati puraha kaman kamayamano so tasya tasyopapattihe na, never, sadhu, good, mene, thought, taha, them, sarvaha, all, bhutale, on this earth, yavatihi, all kinds of, puraha, residential houses, kaman, objects for sense enjoyment, kamayamanaha, desiring, asau, that king, tasya, his, tasya, his, upapattihe, for obtaining. Translation, Narada Muni is speaking to King Prachinabarhishat. King Puranjana had unlimited desires for sense enjoyment. Consequently, he traveled all over the world to find a place where all his desires could be fulfilled. Unfortunately, he found a feeling of insufficiency everywhere. Purport. Srila Vidyapati, a great Vaishnava poet, has sung, Tatala sakate vadi bindu sama sutta mita ramani samaje. Material sense gratification with society, friendship, and love is herein compared to a drop of water falling on a desert. A desert requires oceans of water to satisfy it, and if only a drop of water is supplied, what is the use? Or what is its use? Similarly, the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is anandamayo bhyasat, full of enjoyment. Being part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity is also seeking complete enjoyment. However, complete enjoyment cannot be achieved separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In his wanderings in the different species of life, the living entity may taste some type of enjoyment in one body or another, but full enjoyment of the senses cannot be obtained in any material body. Thus, Puranjan, the living entity, wanders in different types of bodies, but everywhere he meets frustration in his attempt to enjoy. In other words, the spiritual spark covered by matter cannot fully enjoy the senses in any circumstance in material life. A deer may become absorbed in the musical sounds vibrated by the hunter, but the result is that he loses its life. Similarly, a fish is very expert in gratifying its tongue, But when it eats the bait offered by the fisherman, it loses its life. Even the elephant, who is so strong, is captured and loses its independence while satisfying its genitals with a female elephant. In each and every species of life, the living entity gets a body to satisfy various senses. But he cannot enjoy all his senses at one time. In the human form of life, he gets an opportunity to enjoy all his senses pervertedly. But the result is that he becomes so harassed in his attempted sense gratification that he ultimately becomes morose. As he tries to satisfy his senses more and more, he becomes more and more entangled. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master should be powered. Open my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the wandering of the spirit soul, represented by Puranjan, throughout different species, different planets, different situations, always with that desire to increase his enjoyment and correspondingly decreases pain and suffering. So here it's emphasizing how he's trying to fulfill all his desires, but he could never find that place where all his desires could be fulfilled. And nobody can. Every living entity wandering in this material world is looking for what Puranjan is looking for. How to find that place or that situation where your desires will be fulfilled. And Maya is so skillful that she gives you, first of all, hope, and then she gives you a little pleasure. You can experience some pleasure. And you think, at that moment, when you're enjoying, think, I finally found it. But it's temporary. And so when you lose that pleasure, then you have plans for enjoying it again, you know. But eventually, you become unable to enjoy it. It's no longer available. Either the pleasure is the object of pleasure is gone, or your ability to enjoy it goes. With old age, some disease comes, some whatever. So you can see how frustrating it is. This is the nature of the material world. We've wandered away. We've turned our back on Krishna. And we're trying to enjoy in this material world. Bhayam asmati. In the 11th canto, the 9 Yogendras are describing how fear arises. Because along with all of this effort to enjoy, there's anger arises when you're frustrated. Fear arises when somebody else wants to enjoy the same thing, you know, or whatever. Just your body doesn't cooperate. Suddenly you come down with some disease. All kinds of anxieties and fears are attendant with this attempt to enjoy separate from Krishna. That's the nature of the material world. And so he finds a sense of insufficiency everywhere. This is the nature of material world. Now Prabhupada quotes this. He liked to quote this analogy of Vidyapati, how this material world is compared to an ocean, it's compared to a blazing forest fire, sometimes it's compared to a desert. All of them are places of suffering, all of those different things. But they emphasize different things. So in the desert, what is needed? Water is needed, right? In fact, historically, you see when they're able to irrigate these deserts and whole, flourishing agriculture comes up as long as there's enough water. But it's hard to irrigate the desert. And oftentimes there are wars just about the water. That's another thing that's happening because of climate change, is that suddenly places that had water don't have water. People have to migrate. There's wars come up. It's happening in India. But so water is the most thing needed in the desert. So water is compared here to the sense gratification. In other words, to pleasure of the soul. But what's available, oceans are needed, but drops are available. And these little drops of pleasure as you wander in the desert, this is what keeps the conditioned soul going. There's a wonderful verse by Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers, where he doesn't use the analogy of the desert, but he uses the analogy of drops of honey. And now the effort to get those drops of honey can completely cover your knowledge, so that you're just forgetting exactly this, that it's temporary, that there's no ultimate success in finding happiness. You've seen all around people suffering, and yet you're still trying to do it. So he says there, he says, Kutra shisha, shuti sukha, mrigatrishni rupa, quedam kaleva damasheshu da jam viroha, nirvidyate natu janota dapiti vidvan, kaman alam madalavaishama yang durapai. Very, very fascinating verse. So he begins with a very Krishna conscious, very proper estimation of the nature of material sense gratification in this world. So if it is kutra shisha shruti sukha, what is the use, what is the actual value of these aspirations to enjoy in this world? Ashisha, asha, we sing every morning, it's a very common word. Asha, pasha, shatar, badhai. Recognize that from the 16th chapter. The demons bound by the ropes of thousands of asha, of aspirations to enjoy. So he says, kutra ashisha, shruti sukha. This pleasure has the nature of basically hearing about it. It's only the anticipation. I'm going to enjoy, make plans to enjoy, get the money to enjoy, read about it, hear about it, find others who've enjoyed the same thing. That's, you haven't actually enjoyed anything, but that in itself is most of what the enjoyment is about. And then the actual enjoyment has the nature of a mirage. I'm going to enjoy it, now I'm enjoying it, now it's gone. It's like if you go out in the desert, you may see a mirage. Everyone has an experience of a mirage. There's water there on the road, by experience from that. I'm going to get there, there's no water. But you can imagine if you're some thirsty animal, and you see the water in the desert and you run there and there's no water, you can die. That analogy is given elsewhere. I'm going to give that one maybe later. So, he's saying this is the actual nature, mrigatrishni rupa. And what are you enjoying with? The body, with its senses. Kvedam kaleva damasheshu jambiroha. Is this body really a good vehicle for enjoying? It's a reservoir of all kinds of diseases. In other words, you're squeezing out, some kind of pleasure, but basically you're dying. You're doing it, and you're ensuring yourself another term of imprisonment in a material body. That's the downside. There's a huge downside to the sense gratification, and a tiny little upside of this flickering sense gratification. That's actually the logical assessment. So, Kvedam Kalevan Vashejana. And yet he says, Nirvidyate Nirvidyate means not knowing it anymore. In other words, giving it up. Na tujano. Even if you're intelligent, the vidvan understands this. It's very difficult to give up sense gratification because kam analam, the fire of lust burns brightly, and you're so absorbed in getting these honey-like drops of sense gratification to try to extinguish it. In other words, you get caught up in the endeavor for sense gratification, and all that it entails, the worry of not having it, the competition with the others, getting the money to get it, that your knowledge is covered, and you go on birth after birth. Even intelligent people lose it. Without the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and the practice of Krishna consciousness, even though you know that book that Maharaj wrote, right, Ecclesiastes, isn't it all about how he wasn't able to enjoy, and he understood, and all wonderful descriptions of how it's impossible to really get any place of enjoyment in this world. And this was important for young Jay Israel, 17 years old. He read that, of getting a jaundiced view about the material world. He came in touch with the devotees. So it's great to see that. There are many philosophers who have seen this. But without the alternative Krishna consciousness, you can't really do anything about it. And you turn to nihilism, and you get pleasure in writing about that. In other words, there's all kinds of subtle pleasures you can get also. So this is the nature. Paranjan is never satisfied here. He keeps wandering. This is the wandering soul. Brahmanda Brahmadekon. Through different species, through different planets, looking to regain what he lost, which is Anandamayo Bhyasat. This is a nice little phrase. It's a whole Vedanta sutra. These sutras are often very short. They're little aphorisms. Anandamayo, Maya, this suffix Maya means full of, sometimes made of. There's so many devotees, a lot of ladies actually in this movement, named Karuna Mayi. The Mayi is the feminine form, means full of compassion. It's a name for Radharani, Karuna Mayi. And Krishna is known as Ananda Maya, made of, or full of, or always overflowing with Ananda and bliss. And the Abhyasat is a word that means, and we see by seeing his life, by his activities, and by his pastimes, that they're always filled with Ananda. Even when he's killing some demon, that's another form of Ananda. So we're part and parcel of Krishna. Altogether, Mamaya Vangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Okay, that's the part that Prabhupada would always quote, mostly. To indicate that the living entity is the Angsha of Krishna. Mama Aiva Angsha, Krishna is saying. Now what is an Angsha? An Angsha is what Prabhupada's famous part and parcel. In other words, just like a drop of water in the desert, a ray of sunshine. A ray of sunshine has a little bit of light, a little bit of heat, and the sun has infinite heat and light. The water, the Pacific Ocean, is infinite compared to the little drop, but the quality is the same. The quality is there. Krishna is Anandamaya Abhyasat, so are we when we're in devotional service, when we're in our constitutional position, which is Krishna Seva, right? Mukti Havanya Swarupena Vivastiti, you quoted that. Our Swarup, as the Lord Chaitanya says, is to be eternal servants of God, of Krishna. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. When we reject that identity, and we can't give up service, we got to serve, we become servants of our senses, servants of our wife, of our husband, of the children, of our ideas, so many things. We remain servants, but cutting ourselves off from service to Krishna, we lose that nature of Anandamaya, of being full of bliss all the time. So what happens? We search for that in this material world, which is not available. What do you find? The perverted reflection. Prabhupada said perverted reflection, distorted reflection. Yes, there's some pleasure, but it's flickering. It's not really ananda. It's indriya priti, and that just leads to unlimited suffering. I like to just think of, the reality is that the sense gratification is there. There is some pleasure, but a lot of work, a lot of anxiety. You can't always get it. If you do get it, it's flickering. So there's all of this downside, even before you enjoy it, and then it's gone, which leaves your desire to experience it again. So a little bit of flickering pleasure and a whole lot of pain. And Krishna consciousness means to accept. We've been reading in the 18th chapter some austerity, some sacrifice, penance, Prabhupada would call it, which is really minimal compared to what these yogis go through. Just read the sixth chapter. What to speak of descriptions in the Bhagavad Gita. Go alone, live alone, completely alone, and in a forest. Even that itself is like beyond imagination for us. And then finally, in the end, what do you get? Most of them get deviated by the cities they develop. A few of them develop like, okay, now I've got a few powers, now let me go to America and make a lot of money and find some nice little yoginis to exploit. It's happened. I mean, it's horrible, accounts of that. So that's a total perversion. In other words, you don't really get to the point of Anandamaya Abhyasa anymore, because it's not available outside of Bhakti Yoga, out of Bhakti. Krishna awards you that bliss when proportional to your devotion and your purity and your love for him. That's not something that you can get on your own. That's awarded to you. So here we find this extended description of Paranjan, the living entity, who's in the material world and he's looking for his Ananda, and he's not going to find it. Complete enjoyment cannot be achieved separate from the Supreme Lord. So the living entity may taste some type of enjoyment, but full enjoyment cannot be obtained in any material body. Prabhupada points out, this is straight from a lecture, that you probably heard this lecture. Anyone who listens to Prabhupada's lectures comes across this one. It's in LA, probably around 1970. And Vishnujan, I don't know if he's a Maharaj yet, he's in the audience, and you hear his voice. So what happens, Prabhupada's given the lecture, I think Bhagavad Gita, and gradually you hear these sounds of bells, in the distance, you know. And they get louder and louder and louder. Prabhupada finally stops. What is that? Says, "Oh, Prabhupada, that's the ice cream man. They're coming." And, you know, to try to attract the children. Says, "Oh, they're canvassing?" "Yes, they're canvassing, you know, to get some customers." So Prabhupada listens, he chuckles a little bit, and he says, "Ah, this is Maya. This is Maya." And then he imitates, you know, you've heard. Come on, enjoy me. Come on, enjoy me. Come on, enjoy me." And become entrapped. And then he gives the example, just as exactly the same examples here. The first is the fish with the tongue, you know. And he uses the word tackle, fishing tackle, you know. Fishing tackle, I don't know if that includes the bait. It's the bait also, as well as the lures, the whole thing. He knows better. Florida man. So, whether it's a lure, I used to go fishing with my father upstate. We mostly used the lures. Sometimes the worms. I could never put the worms on there, you know. But anyway, the idea is that either through the lure, the shiny lure, you know, swimming in it, or the big hunk of worms, it's attracting the tongue of the fish. And Prabhupada imitates the fish. He said, you know, the tackle is there, and he's swimming. You know, he imitates being caught in that by that hook. So he loses his life because the tongue is out of control. Then he gives the example of the deer. Same thing here. These hunters, they learn to play a little rudimentary flute, you know, because they know the deer is attracted by that. In other words, they're entranced and they don't run away. And so if you're playing the flute, then the deers will gather just to hear that. And then you shoot them with the arrow or something, you know. So he loses his life by the ear. The elephant, he probably gives the elephant here. How to capture, he asks the audience, does anyone know how they capture an elephant? Nobody knew it. And so he said they dig a big pit and they train a female elephant to kind of prance around on the other side of the pit. And then some male elephant, you know, I can enjoy. So he runs toward the female elephant, and boom, he's in the pit. And then you can imagine he's screaming and yelling, and they have to probably just wait a while, you know. And finally they subdue him, and they got another elephant. So one of these senses, you know, is most prominent in each animal, and they're captured by that. But we have all the senses we can be attracted by. And I think Prabhupada, in this lecture, another one, he gives the example. If you read Prahlad's prayers, he's taking the role of a conditioned soul. Oh, I'm just like a man with 6 wives, you know. You got one wife is getting, come with me over here, pull me this way, pull me this and this way. You pulled apart, you don't know what to do. So it's like our senses and the mind. Sometimes you're sitting quietly, but the mind itself is going all over the place. The mind is also a big organ of satisfaction. What's all these books? People just reading. None of the senses are active, the eyes, you know. But you're experiencing so much through the reading, or what to speak of the movies and everything. All of that is subtle sense gratification. It can be most powerful. So all of these senses, having been infected by the modes of material nature, are giving us ideas for enjoyment. And those who are, you know, skilled at selling us the things for enjoyment, then they advertise, they present it in such a way that it's most attractive. And so if you have no means of being attracted to the transcendence, to the reality, then you're victimized. You're victimized by the material energy, especially today where it's Kali Yuga, so many, you know, things. So how to solve the problem? First is by hearing the story of Puranjan. In other words, the intelligence needs to understand the reality. You may not be able to control all of these things, but you've been conditioned to, enjoy and go to it. And so therefore there's a sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi means the rules and regulations. You accept, the intelligence accepts, yes, I have faith that this is true, and I what gives me the faith? Hearing from the Shastra, seeing the devotees, especially the pure devotee, the state, Prabhupada was in. His own person and his own example gave so much credibility to what he was saying. And certain fortunate souls, they attained the faith. They took up the chanting, first the hearing, and they chanted. And in this way, they experienced directly the presence of Krishna. Not in full, but whatever, to whatever degree they could concentrate and receive it. And that is the seed that you then continue to water and your bhakti grows. And with the bhakti means that you're getting, hints, and sometimes more than hints, of that ananda. It's not, that's the amazing thing about this practice, is that it's not like a long, situation in which you don't experience anything, and a lot of austerity, and then finally you experience something. No, from day one, if you throw yourself into the chanting, if you're here, you're gonna, wow, that was something. Let me read that book. What happened? And then your intelligence gets. And in this way, Lord Chaitanya's movement can prevail. Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Sankirtan will be victorious, Lord Chaitanya said. So, but this philosophy that we're hearing, Bhagavatam, is very important to keep the intelligence strong, become inspired to follow those vidis, those instructions that we get from the Shastra and from the Guru, and overcome the obstacles. The obstacles are all internal. But they're formidable because we're so conditioned, each in our own special way. Certain set of attractions, certain set of fears, all kinds of things. It can be very powerful. So this instruction is Puranjan. That's us, and we're wandering. We have been wandering for countless ages, different bodies, different species, and now, by great fortune, by hard work and sacrifice and compassion of Srila Prabhupada and his sincere followers like Bhakti Churu Swami and others, we have this chance, we have this opportunity. It's a golden opportunity, to live in a temple and to be able to practice devotional service. In one sense, there's a silver lining to this horrible COVID thing, and that is that we have an opportunity to really intensify our sadhana, read a lot, discuss, learn. You should take Bhakti Shastri, become armed, armed with knowledge, armed with detachment, and so that when this thing finally clears up and we have a more public profile and people are coming and going out, you'll be stronger and be greater preachers. So it's a real opportunity. And I think as we go on, you'll see that there's never a dull moment in this Puranjan allegory. It's quite an adventure. He goes through so much, and we can identify with it. The time is coming, and therefore we can't waste any time. Every moment is so valuable, and how to use it in Krishna consciousness, and be able to advance in devotional service. Okay, any questions or comments? If not, I'll read another verse. Yeah, go ahead. Balaram. So happy that you don't have COVID-19, Balaram. We hear someone that's not feeling well, or he's laid up, okay, well, how is it? What's going on? But anyway, you look pretty normal.
Yeah. In Prahlad Maharaj's teachings, he talks about how trying to enjoy material happiness is like chewing a sugar cane.
Chewing the chewed.
Chewing the chewed.
Yeah.
And sometimes chewing the chewed, that could refer to chewing a bubble gum after it's already been chewed, or what do I say, sugar cane? Was it sugar cane?
Yeah. Or as I adapted it for modern days, viewing the viewed. Did you know that? Viewing the viewed. It's right there in the Bhagavatam. Go ahead.
So,
watching movie after movie.
I'm just wondering, because it's like, obviously that makes sense, and I'm just wondering, because it's like, if somebody chews a piece of sugar cane, and then the juice is all gone, and then somebody else tries to chew it again, because like recently, in America we don't get much sugar cane, but some devotee, they brought some sugar cane, they peeled it, they offered it, and then devotees were having it. But once that juice is gone, it's gone. It's like there's no getting it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you'd think a person has to be like, I don't know, like insane or crazy or like
Nunam pramatta.
but like, what do they actually get from it? You know, like the pleasure. You know, are they like working out their jaw, or like, you know, what's the pleasure there? You know what I mean? At least in that analogy.
Okay, you want an answer? Well, it's like this. You know, I take it. It's perhaps more pertinent or more, understandable if you're chewing the sugar cane that you yourself have chewed before, meaning that maybe I didn't get all of the juice out of that, you know, and I don't have any new sugar cane to chew, so I'll try that again, you know. And think of it in terms of people who get into drugs, you know. I mean, there's a certain pleasure there, you know, when you first take it, you know, and maybe you can repeat some of it, but at a certain point, you can recognize the downside, you know, but still it says, yeah, you know, but just one more time, you know, I really like that high, or I really like that buzz, or whatever you like, you know, to call it. And so that's exactly what it is. Even you know it's damaging, or you know that there's hardly any pleasure there, and it's mostly going to be pain. But you're so covered over. You've just like it says in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the lust, the material desire, takes over your senses, your mind, and your intelligence. I mean, just think of someone. I haven't seen him for a while. Maybe they moved out of my apartment. But we had someone who was a smoker. It was a lady. She was from. She said hello one time, or good morning, and I could see the accent. She's from abroad somewhere, I think. And she would, you know, periodically, I could smell it wafting up the stairs. You know, she had to go outside because the guy she's with didn't smoke. You know. So, you know, I used to smoke when I was 15. It was 1962 or something. You know, everyone smoked. It was just before it was like a year later or so. They started putting those notices on there. You know, warning: cigarette smoking is hazardous to your health. Now, just imagine what that means. It's hazardous to my health, but I still need a cigarette. You know, and you buy that. You know, in other words, it doesn't impact your intelligence is covered over because it's taken over. It's in the senses. That's real addiction. You know, so that's what chewing the chewed is. It means that even though you know that the pleasure is limited and that there's pain involved, and I'm probably killing myself, still I'm going to chew it. I'm going to smoke it. I'm going to inject it. I'm going to snort it, eat it, whatever it may be. You know, just look at the obesity pandemic. That's a real pandemic. It's all over the world. We're exporting it. You know. So what does that mean? People are eating things that give some pleasure, knowing full well that it's, you know, ruining their health, you know. But the intelligence is covered. That's chewing the chewed. And the context of the verse of that line, right, is Matirna Krishne Paratak Svatova Mitobi Padjetigriha Bhatana Madanta Gobi Vishatamta Misam Punak Banashchavita Chavana. So he's preaching to his father, Hiranyakashipu, telling him why, don't worry, father, you'll never become a devotee. Because someone who is completely absorbed has taken a vow, you know, to try to enjoy materialistic family life, and whose senses are out of control. They can't become Krishna conscious by their own efforts, by meeting with someone else who go into the temple, if they maintain that mentality, you know. And so the punchline, if you will, is punak punascharvita chavananam. They keep chewing on that what they've already chewed. In other words, it's what we've been doing life after life for millions and millions of births. You know, we may not remember, but we still have those unfulfilled desires. That's given us a new body, and then we try to enjoy. Now there may be a difference in form. We may be subhuman, but still we have a set of senses, eyes, you know, and we can try to enjoy. It's a real tragedy for the soul, which is by nature divine, and has a place, you know, at Krishna's lotus feet. But because of our nonsense, we've turned our back on Krishna. That's why, I don't know if you notice, some of you are new here, that when we get into walking, I'm always making an angle here. I'm walking here, walking there, walking, because it's impossible for me to consciously just even walk with my back to the deities. You know what I'm saying? We know you're not supposed to sit with your back to the deities, right? But it never made any sense to me. Well, okay, I can walk with my back to the deities. So that's why we're here. We turned our back on Krishna. What is it? Bhayam tu devamani said, Ishara petasya. The second line of the verse about fear is that we literally turn away from Krishna, turn our back on Krishna, and we become absorbed in the material energy. Tvadiya banaveshitakshyad. Yeah, we have our model. Yeah, we're imitating. But the thing is, we've cut ourselves off by turning our attention away from Krishna. And everything becomes upside down. Viparya, reversed. Instead of being service of Krishna, we try to be master of this world. Instead of giving Krishna pleasure and in that way enjoying our anandamaya abhyasat, we're trying to give ourselves pleasure, and to do that we have to get a material body, and we're stuck, in this cycle, birth after birth. So the only hope, as I like to say, is an intervention. An intervention. Just like if someone is totally into drugs or gambling, or one of these things that are so addictive, or alcohol, of course, they need someone who loves them, who cares about them, to get them by the lapels or shake them. Said, "You're not going back to the bar. You're coming with me to rehab." And if the person is intelligent, they'll surrender to that. And that means they'll be in a place where it's not available, and they have association to give them spiritual strength or willpower. And hopefully you'll get cured of it. It sometimes works for some time. But even in AA, everyone knows, that you can easily fall off the wagon at any time. Well, okay, I have so many friends in the bar, I'll just go and sit, I'll have a seltzer. Yeah, right. As soon as you walk in the bar, and chances are you'll have a drink, and boom, and you had 10 drinks. So that's the problem. That's chewing the chewed. So the whole idea is that we need an intervention, and that intervention has come in the form of Srila Prabhupada, who took the trouble to intervene in our lives. Sometimes the devotees say, yeah, we go out and people say we bother them. He says, yes, our duty is to bother them with Harinam. The fact that we force them to hear, very unfortunate people go by, a few will go like this, But because they're walking toward a cliff, toward hell. It's like, hey, stop, and you grab them. Hey, why did you grab me? Because you're walking toward a cliff. You're destroying your life. So that, and any book distributor knows, some people, hey, I'm on my way, get out of here. You take that trouble and all that trouble to intervene in their lives and try to give them the truth. And Krishna sees that trouble you take. And that's how you make advancement. Okay, we're going to get some realization from Vijay.
How averse people are to hearing the holy name. We were on Harinam in Santa Monica Promenade.
Yeah.
And this person was in line to go to the movies.
Yeah.
So he had to stand there and hear the holy name.
Yeah.
So he told us, listen, I'll give you guys a donation if you can just go about maybe 100 yards ahead. Someone should have said, well, if you give us $1 million, one time I was in book distribution, and I have one of these square things where you put in the amount, and the guy said, just put any amount you want in. What?
You mean you had some kind of computerized thing?
Yeah, I have my phone.
Yeah. Okay.
And you get donations, and you put an amount.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, so he said, just put any number you want.
What'd you put in there?
I just put 50, but I could have put, I don't know, probably $1 million. I could have put 20,000 or something.
Well, he gets credit for that. That's unusual.
Yeah, that's the first and only time.
Yeah, like Bali. I want it all. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.